It was a cold, rainy afternoon in the city. People rushed past with umbrellas, cars splashed through puddles, and the sky was grey like it hadn't smiled all day. Alice held her coat tighter around her. She had just finished a long meeting and was walking toward her car, heels clicking on the wet sidewalk. Her driver was stuck in traffic, so she decided to walk a few blocks alone. As she passed a small alley near a bakery, something caught her eye. A man was kneeling beside a trash bin. He had messy hair, an old coat that looked too thin for the weather, and his shoes were full of holes. He pulled out a half-eaten sandwich and looked at it like he hadn't eaten in days. Alice stopped. She opened her handbag, took out some cash, and walked toward him carefully. "Here," she said gently, holding the money out. "Take this. Get something warm to eat." The man looked up, surprised. His eyes were kind, even though his face was tired. "I'm not asking for charity, miss," he said softly. Alice smiled. "It's not charity, it's help, that's all." He stood slowly, brushing the rain from his sleeves. "Why are you helping me?" "Because I see you're having a hard time," she said. "And I've been there too. Maybe not like this, but I understand." He looked at her, then at the money. His hand trembled a little, but he didn't take it. "I don't like taking money for nothing," he said. "But if you have any work, I'm not afraid to do it. I'll earn whatever you give me." Alice blinked. She wasn't expecting that. Then she remembered something. Her construction project, her new community center, was behind schedule. One of the workers quit last week, and she hasn't found a replacement yet. The place was a mess and needed cleaning and fixing before they could move forward. She looked at him again. His clothes were worn, but his voice was strong and his eyes were honest. "What's your name?" she asked. "Jackson," he replied. "Just Jackson." "Well, Jackson," Alice said, "how do you feel about working on a building site?" He smiled for the first time. "If it's real work, I'm ready to start today." She reached into her purse and took out a card. "Here's the address. Be there tomorrow morning at 8. Ask for me when you arrive." Jackson took the card carefully, as if it was something valuable. "Thank you," he said. "You're welcome," Alice replied, then turned and walked away, not knowing that this small meeting in the rain was going to change both their lives forever. The next morning, the sun was shining, but the ground was still wet from the night's rain. Birds chirped overhead as workers arrived one by one at the half-finished community center. It was a big project, and the place still needed a lot of work. At exactly 8 a.m., Jackson walked up to the gate. He wore the same old clothes from the day before. His jeans were patched, and his boots had seen better days, but his eyes were focused, and he carried himself with quiet strength. Some workers turned to stare. A few whispered and laughed. "Who's that guy?" one of them muttered. "He looks like he slept under a bridge," another joked. "Maybe he's lost," someone else added. Jackson ignored them. He looked around until he spotted a woman in a clean white hard hat and a rolled-up plan under her arm. It was Alice. He walked up to her slowly. "Good morning, Mom. I'm Jackson. We met yesterday." Alice smiled warmly. "Right on time. Come with me." She led him through the dusty site to a man in a yellow vest, with a sharp voice and a clipboard in his hand. "Mr. Grant," she said, "this is Jackson. He'll be working with us." The foreman, Mr. Grant, raised an eyebrow and looked Jackson up and down. "Really?" he said. "He doesn't exactly look like a builder." "He has hands," Alice said simply, "and he wants to work. That's enough." Mr. Grant sighed but didn't argue. "Fine. He can start by cleaning up the east wing. Tools are in the storage room. Tell Joe to show him where everything is." Alice gave Jackson a small nod. "Do your best." Jackson smiled. Always. He got to work immediately. While others chatted or checked their phones, Jackson swept up broken tiles, moved heavy bricks, and cleared the walkways. His movements were quiet, steady, and fast. By lunch, the area he was assigned looked completely different. Mr. Grant walked by and paused. "Who did all this?" "Jackson," one of the workers said. "The new guy." The foreman scratched his head and looked across the site. Jackson was now filling a hole in the wall with perfect care. He called out, "Hey, have you ever done this before?" Jackson looked up, wiped sweat from his face, and said, Yes, sir. I used to run a team of workers before. Things changed. Mr. Grant nodded slowly. Well, keep going. You do good work. Alice stood nearby, watching with quiet pride. She didn't say anything, but her eyes followed Jackson as he moved from one task to another, always focused, never resting. And as the day went on, the whispers and laughter slowly stopped. By evening, Jackson had earned more than just a day's pay. He had earned respect. Time passed quickly, and soon the clock struck noon. The loud clang of a metal bell signaled lunchtime at the construction site. Workers set down their tools, dusted off their clothes, and moved toward the shade with packed meals and cold drinks. Jackson didn't sit with the others. Instead, he found a quiet corner near the back fence, where a small patch of shade stretched beside an old trash bin. He took out a small sandwich wrapped in paper, something one of the other workers had shared with him that morning. Alice stood nearby, reviewing her notes and drawings. She wasn't hungry. She usually didn't eat during site visits, but something made her glance toward the back, and there she saw him. Jackson was staring at something in his hand. It was a small gold ring. He turned it over slowly with his fingers, then let out a soft sigh. Without a word, he stood up, walked to the bin, and dropped it inside like it was nothing. Then he went back to finish his lunch. Alice blinked. That wasn't just any ring. She walked over quietly, looked inside the trash, and saw it. A simple, shiny gold band. She picked it up carefully, wiped the dust off it, and turned to him. "Jackson," she said gently, "why would you throw away a gold ring?" He looked up, surprised to see her holding it. "It's just metal," he replied. "Gold doesn't mean anything when love turns fake." Alice paused. "Was it yours?" He nodded. "It belonged to my ex-wife. We were married for 5 years. I gave her that ring when I still believed forever was real." Alice didn't speak. She just held the ring in her palm, unsure what to do with it. "She left me when I lost everything," Jackson said softly. "My job, my house, my company. One by one it all disappeared. And so did she. Said she didn't sign up for poverty." Alice's heart sank. She looked at him, not just as a worker or a man with worn-out shoes, but as someone who had truly loved, truly lost, and was now carrying pain deeper than any wound. "I'm sorry," she whispered. Jackson shook his head. "Don't be. Some people leave so the right ones can come in." Alice slowly closed her hand around the ring. "Do you want it back?" "No," he said gently. "Let it go." She stood there a moment longer, feeling a lump in her throat. He didn't ask for sympathy. He didn't cry or complain, but somehow she felt his pain as if it were her own. And for the first time in a long while, Alice didn't feel like the rich girl with a big project. She just felt like a woman who'd met a good man. And maybe fate had brought her here for more than just construction. Soon, it was already after 3 p.m., the sun hung high, and the noise of drilling and hammering filled the air at the site. Jackson was working near the west side wall, carefully patching a cracked edge. His shirt clung to his back from the heat, but he kept moving, steady and quiet. Alice stood near the center of the site, speaking with a few engineers about next steps. She looked confident as always, even with her sleeves rolled up and dust on her shoes. Then suddenly, a black car pulled up roughly outside the gate. The door slammed. A man in a dark blue suit stormed in like he owned the place. It was Peter, Alice's fiancé and co-investor in the building project. Tall, sharp-jawed, and full of pride, he walked straight toward her, his face tight with anger. "Alice!" he snapped. She turned sharply. "Peter, what are you doing here? We need to talk. Now." Jackson noticed the tension from a distance and paused his work, quietly watching. Alice stepped aside with Peter. "What's the matter?" "You know what this is about," Peter hissed.
"Why are you telling people I kissed Tina?" "Because I saw it with my own eyes, Peter. You didn't trip and fall into her lips," she said, voice shaking. "She kissed me," he argued. "I didn't ask for it." "I don't care who started it. The point is you let it happen," Alice replied firmly. "And I'm done pretending like everything's okay. You know this relationship has been over a long time ago. There is nothing between us now." Peter's face darkened. "You think you can just dump me and still keep this project going?" Alice stiffened. What are you saying? You owe me, Alice.
Don't forget I put in half the money for this site. I handled the legal work, the permits, the land lease. If you want to finish this place without me, you'll need to pay me back. All of it. Alice's voice went low. I don't have that kind of money right now. Then you have 24 hours, Peter said coldly. Either pay me back or I pull out. I'll take my half of everything. Equipment, workers, rights. You'll lose it all. Jackson stood still, pretending to sweep, but he was watching every word from a distance. Alice looked away for a moment, holding back tears. You'd destroy everything over your pride? Peter leaned closer, voice like ice. For one mistake, you're throwing away years. I helped you build this dream, and this is how you repay me? You cheated on me, she whispered. That's how you ruined it. Peter laughed bitterly. Fine. Then let's end this, business included. He turned sharply and stormed back toward his car, shouting into his phone. Alice stood there frozen. The noise of the workers faded around her. For a moment she forgot she was at a site surrounded by people. She felt like she was standing alone on a cliff edge with everything she had built now about to fall. Jackson gently set his broom aside. He didn't walk over, he didn't say anything. But he looked at her the same way she had looked at him the day before, with quiet understanding and silent respect. They were both fighting battles no one else could see, and though she didn't know it yet, someone was watching, ready to step in when the time was right. That evening, after the noisy site had quieted down and most of the workers had gone, Jackson stayed behind to finish sweeping a dusty corner near the fence. The sky was starting to turn orange, and a soft breeze cooled the heat of the day. Alice had also stayed late, reviewing papers on a bench just outside the small site office. Jackson, she called, you've done enough for today. You can go home. He smiled gently and nodded. Just wanted to finish this last part. Before he could leave, a sharp voice echoed from across the street. Well, well, if it isn't the great Jackson. Jackson froze, that voice. He turned, and there she was, Fiona. She stood in a tight red dress, holding a large brown envelope. Her hair was perfectly styled, her nails freshly done. She didn't belong in this dusty neighborhood, and she knew it. What are you doing here? Jackson asked quietly. Fiona walked closer, smirking. I have been trying to reach you. I'm so glad I finally found you. I came to finally close the chapter of my sad, wasted years with you. She shoved the envelope into his hands. Those are the divorce papers with my conditions. I want the house. That's what I truly deserve after all the suffering. Jackson didn't even look at the papers. Not everything was bad, Fiona. Fiona scoffed. It was good when you were somebody, when you had a company, a future. But now look at you, just another dirty worker on a half-finished building site. He took a deep breath. Everyone has their ups and downs. She folded her arms. I am so glad we never had any children, thank God. I wouldn't want my child to grow up with a poor man who has no hope. Those words stung more than any slap. Alice, who had heard everything, slowly stood up and walked over. Excuse me, she said, her voice firm. That man you're insulting, he's the reason this building site is still on schedule. He works harder than anyone here. Fiona raised an eyebrow. And who are you? Alice. I own this site, and Jackson is more than just a worker. I have not known him for a long time, but I can see he works very hard. Jackson looked at Alice, stunned by her sudden defense. Fiona laughed mockingly. So this is what your life has become? Being saved by your boss? Jackson stepped forward. I may be working construction now, Fiona, but I haven't given up on my future. I invested in a company, a new tech startup. It's small now, but I believe it'll grow. Fiona laughed again, even louder. Tech what? Jackson, nothing good can come from you again. You're finished. That silly dream won't feed you. I've already moved on with a man who can actually provide for me. Jackson stayed silent. He wouldn't let her poison him any longer. Alice looked at him. When do you have to sign the papers? Tomorrow, Jackson said quietly. Do you want me to go with you? She asked. Jackson's eyes widened. What? I'll come, Alice said. I don't like how she spoke to you. and nobody should have to face that kind of cruelty alone. Fiona rolled her eyes. Wow, you've found yourself a little protector now. Alice turned to her. No, he didn't ask me to, but I choose to stand with people who don't pretend to be perfect. Jackson looked down at the envelope in his hand, then back at Alice. Thank you, he said softly. Fiona gave one last scoff and walked away, heels clicking as she disappeared into the night. Jackson stood there in silence, holding the divorce papers, his past finally asking for closure. And for the first time in a long time, someone was choosing to stand beside him, not because of what he had, but because of who he was. The next morning was calm, but Jackson's heart was not. He stood outside the lawyer's office, holding the same brown envelope Fiona had given him. His clothes were cleaner today. Alice had sent someone from the site to get him a fresh shirt. Still, his hands felt cold. Alice arrived right on time. She wore a simple blue blouse and black trousers, no makeup, no jewelry, just quiet support. You didn't have to come, Jackson said gently. I know, Alice replied, but I wanted to. Together they stepped into the quiet office. A middle-aged lawyer with gray glasses and a calm face welcomed them in. Sitting across the table, already waiting, was Fiona, dressed to perfection, red lips tight with confidence. Well, she said, flipping her hair, let's not waste time. I have lunch plans. The lawyer cleared his throat. All right, Mr. Jackson and Miss Fiona, this is the final divorce agreement. Fiona is requesting full ownership of the house. Jackson, do you agree? Jackson nodded slowly. Yes, she can have the house. Fiona smirked and looked at Alice. Smart girl, following him here. Hope you're learning what failure looks like. Alice said nothing, but her expression didn't change. The lawyer continued. Jackson, you will retain full ownership of your investment in Technova as discussed. Fiona has no claim over that asset. Tech what? Fiona scoffed. That worthless little idea. Oh, please, let him keep it. It won't even cover rent next month. The lawyer paused but said nothing. Jackson signed the papers without looking up. Then he passed the pen to Fiona. She took her time. You know, she said to Alice, he used to talk big, had all these dreams. And look at him now, begging for work, still chasing fake hopes. Alice leaned forward slightly. He may have lost some things, but at least he never lost his dignity. Fiona's smile faded, just a little, but she signed anyway. The lawyer looked at them both. That's it. You're now officially divorced. Jackson stood slowly, feeling a strange mix of sadness and relief. As Fiona grabbed her purse, she turned to Alice one last time. Take my advice. Don't waste your time on men who dream more than they earn. Then she walked out. Jackson sighed deeply, still staring at the signed papers. Are you okay? Alice asked. He nodded. Actually, yes. For the first time in years. They walked outside together. The sun was shining. The city moved around them as if nothing had changed. But something had. Jackson no longer felt trapped in the past. And he wasn't afraid of what came next. He looked at Alice and said, Thank you. For being there. She smiled. You would have done the same for me. Neither of them said it, but something had shifted between them. It wasn't just kindness anymore. It was trust. And somewhere deep inside, a secret waited to be revealed. Jackson took a long, slow breath, as if releasing years of weight from his chest. Alice walked beside him in silence, giving him space, yet never letting him feel alone. Where are you headed now? She asked gently as they reached the sidewalk. I'll just take a bus, Jackson replied. Back to the site. Alice stopped. You don't have to go back to work today. That was a lot to deal with. Let me drive you home. Jackson shook his head. No, thank you. I want to keep working. I don't want to sit and be alone, thinking about things I can't change. Alice studied his face for a moment, then nodded. All right. But just know you don't have to act strong for me. He gave a small smile. I'm not pretending. In fact, I think this was for the best. She raised her brows slightly. Jackson looked up at the sky and then back at her. Fiona never really believed in me, not even when things were good. She liked what I had, not who I was. Alice didn't interrupt. He continued, voice softer now. I didn't lose everything by accident. I started noticing changes, small lies, late nights, strange phone calls. I suspected she was cheating on me, but I wasn't sure. He paused. So, I decided to find out. I stopped showing her money. I told her the business was failing. I wanted to see what she'd do, and she showed me. Alice's expression shifted to sadness. She left. Worse, Jackson said. She humiliated me, treated me like I was a disease. A few days back, when she found out I had invested in Technova, she laughed in my face, said it was a waste of time. He stopped walking, turned to Alice and added, but I believe in it. I studied the company, its growth, its potential. I sold the little I had left and invested everything. Right now I don't have much, but I know it's going to pay off. Alice looked at him quietly, then asked, why didn't you tell anyone? Because I wanted to see how the world treats someone who has nothing. How people look at you when you don't wear nice clothes or carry a title. He looked down. I needed to know who was real. Alice's voice was gentle. And what did you find? He looked at her, a hint of surprise in his eyes. I found you. They stood there in silence for a beat. Then Alice smiled. I don't know where Technova will go, but I believe in you. And if you saw something in that company, I'm sure it'll grow. You don't talk like someone chasing luck. You talk like someone who's building something. Jackson's smile widened. It wasn't the tired, polite smile from before. It was warm and full of something deeper. Hope. I didn't think people like you still existed, he said. The kind who see with the heart, not just the eyes. I could say the same, Alice replied softly. The sound of city traffic faded around them. In that moment, nothing else mattered. Not Fiona, not the divorce, not the past. Just two people, one with a dream and one who chose to believe in it. The next morning, the construction site buzzed with the usual sound of drilling and hammering. Jackson arrived early, already pushing a wheelbarrow full of bricks with quiet focus. He felt lighter today, freer, as if finally stepping out of a shadow. Alice arrived a little later, looking tired but determined. She had barely slept. Between the divorce papers and thoughts of Jackson's story, her mind had been racing all night. Still, she pushed through. The project had to continue. She barely took 3 steps into the site when Peter's voice cut through the noise. Well, well, if it isn't my favorite boss lady. Alice turned sharply. What do you want now, Peter? Peter stood in front of her, arms crossed, a smug grin on his face. Just checking if you've gathered the money. I told you before I need more time, Alice said, her tone steady. You already owe me $50,000, Peter said with a shrug. And if you can't pay it today, there's another way. Alice narrowed her eyes. What do you mean? Peter stepped closer, his voice dropping. Just one night, that's all. You come to my apartment tonight and I'll forgive the debt. Maybe I'll even bring some wine. Alice took a step back, disgusted. You're sick. I'm offering you a choice, he said with a shrug. Pay up, or enjoy a memorable evening. Alice's hands clenched. Over my dead body. Peter chuckled. Suit yourself. You've got till sunset. After that, I'll take my share of the project and walk. From behind a stack of cement bags, Jackson had heard everything. He stepped out slowly. You really think she has no one? Peter turned, surprised. What's this? The broom boy wants to speak? Jackson walked up calmly. You said she owes you $50,000? Peter laughed. Yes, and unless you have it in your pocket. Give me your bank account number, Jackson interrupted. Peter blinked. What? You heard me, Jackson said firmly. Give me the number, now. Peter rolled his eyes. You're joking. You don't even have decent shoes. What are you going to send? $5 and a handshake? Jackson pulled out his phone. Say the number. Something in his tone made Peter pause. Fine, Peter said slowly. 94835504442. Jackson typed it in carefully. Then he pressed something and held out his phone for Alice to see. Transfer successful. $50,000. Peter's mouth opened. Wait. Where did you... I told you before, Jackson said calmly. Just because someone looks poor doesn't mean they are. Some people just dress simply. Peter grabbed his phone and checked his alerts. When he saw the transfer, his face turned red. This is insane, he muttered.
No, Alice said, standing tall beside Jackson. What's insane is you thinking you could buy me with money or fear. Peter looked from Alice to Jackson, speechless. You have your money, Jackson said. Now leave. Peter opened his mouth to argue, then thought better of it. Without another word, he turned and stormed out, humiliated. The workers watched in silence as he disappeared down the road. Alice shook her head in amazement, then she let out a breath she didn't know she was holding. You just saved me. Jackson looked at her, eyes warm. No. I just reminded him that good people still have backup. The sight had calmed after Peter's dramatic exit. Workers whispered quietly, stealing glances at Jackson with new eyes, no longer just the man with torn boots, but someone who had just paid off a $50,000 debt without blinking. Alice didn't say much, not yet. She simply asked Jackson to follow her for a walk, away from the noise, away from the stairs. They found a quiet street 2 blocks from the site. Birds chirped in trees, and the soft afternoon sun warmed the pavement. Alice finally turned to face him. I need to ask you something, she said gently. Jackson nodded. Go ahead. That money, the transfer, how did you get it? Her voice wasn't accusing, just curious, shocked even. Jackson took a deep breath, then smiled. Technova, the company I told you about. I remember, Alice said. Well, last night I got the news, he continued. They went public. The stock exploded. My shares, they're now worth millions. Alice's eyes widened. Millions? He nodded. I still can't believe it. I had invested everything I had left. Old savings, a few of my assets, and even sold my last car. Everyone said I was stupid. Fiona laughed at me. He looked down for a moment. But you didn't, he added softly. You didn't laugh. You didn't question me. You just believed. Alice felt her chest tighten. Jackson, I believed because I saw something in you. The way you work, the way you speak. You're not some lazy dreamer. You're someone who pays attention, who moves with purpose. He looked up at her, his eyes full of something soft and real. I wanted to tell you earlier, he said, but I was still afraid. I've been treated like trash by so many people just because I didn't dress rich or talk loud. I needed to know who would stay when I had nothing. Alice blinked back the sting in her eyes. And what did you learn? He smiled gently. That real people still exist. That not everyone in this world is selfish and materialistic. There was silence for a moment. Just the sound of the wind rustling through leaves. You're not who I expected to meet when I walked out that day looking like dirt, he said. But you showed me kindness when I looked like a nobody. You treated me like a human being. Alice reached out and gently took his hand. Because you are one, a very good one. Jackson looked at her hand holding his. I meant it when I said I didn't want to be alone, but now, I also don't want to keep walking alone. Alice smiled. Then don't. They stood there in the quiet street, under the soft sun, as two people who had been hurt, doubted and left behind, yet somehow found each other. Later that evening, the streetlights began to glow as the sun dipped low behind the buildings. Outside a quiet restaurant on the corner, Alice stood waiting. She had changed out of her work clothes, now wearing a simple cream dress and sandals. Nothing flashy, just peaceful, real. Jackson arrived moments later. He looked different too, not just because his clothes were cleaner or his beard was trimmed, but because he stood taller, lighter, happier. I hope I'm not late, he said with a smile. Alice smiled back. You're right on time. They stood in a moment of silence, both a little nervous, both a little excited. Then Jackson spoke. I've been thinking all day, he said, about everything, about you. Alice looked up at him, listening. I didn't pay Peter because I felt like a hero, he said. And I'm not standing here because I owe you anything. She nodded slowly, waiting. I want to be honest. I want to take you out.
Not because I'm very rich now. Not because I want to impress you, but because I truly like you. The way you listen, the way you see people. I love you, Alice. Her eyes softened. I was hoping you'd say that. Jackson blinked. You were? Yes, she said, stepping closer. Because I feel the same way. From the moment you chose work over pity. From the moment you stood up to Peter. From the moment you said you believed in something, even when no one else did. I saw you. The real you. And I liked what I saw. Jackson smiled, a deep, peaceful smile. So, he said, holding out his hand. Dinner? Alice took it without hesitation. Absolutely. They walked into the restaurant together, hand in hand, not as a rich boss and a poor worker, not as a favor or a rescue mission, but as two equals, two hearts, two survivors of broken trust ready to start again, with honesty, respect, and something money could never buy. As they sat down to their meal, their laughter floated through the air, light and genuine. Outside, the night grew darker, but inside them both, a new light had just begun to shine. It had been a few months since Alive and Jackson confessed their love, and the city streets buzzed with shoppers and laughter. Jackson walked out of a home appliance store, a small bag in his hand and a calm smile on his face. Life had changed a lot in the past few months. His company, Tech Nova, had become one of the fastest rising names in the industry, and he was now a respected businessman once again. But none of that compared to the joy he felt in his heart, because next month he was getting married to Alice. Just as he stepped off the sidewalk, he heard a voice behind him. Jackson? He turned. Standing just a few feet away was Fiona. She wore a faded uniform blouse and looked thinner than before. Her eyes were tired, but her lipstick still tried to hide the truth. I didn't expect to see you here, she said with a nervous smile. Jackson raised an eyebrow. Did you come to buy something luxurious? Fiona looked down. No, I was just looking around. There was a pause, then she stepped closer. Jackson, listen, I've been thinking a lot. About us, about everything. He stayed quiet. I made mistakes, she said. I was angry and selfish and I didn't see your worth. But I do now. I want to fix things. I still love you. Jackson looked at her for a long moment. No, Fiona, you don't love me. You love what I have now. That's not true. It is, he said calmly. You gave up on me the moment I lost money. You laughed at my dreams. You walked away when I needed someone. Now that things are better, you suddenly want to come back? Fiona opened her mouth, but no words came. Just then, the sliding doors behind Jackson opened. Alice stepped out, carrying a gift bag and smiling brightly. There you are, she said, wrapping her arm around his. Ready to go? Fiona's face dropped. Jackson looked at her, then gently pulled Alice closer. Fiona, he said, meet my fiancé. We're getting married next month. Alice smiled warmly, but her eyes were clear. She knew exactly who Fiona was. Fiona stood frozen, unable to speak. Before she could recover, a loud voice came from across the street. Fiona! A woman shouted from the store entrance. You left your post again! Break time's over! Fiona turned quickly, flustered. I'm coming. Jackson's eyes widened slightly as the truth clicked. She worked there. She wasn't shopping. She was working as a floor assistant. The woman who once mocked him for becoming a construction worker was now being scolded for standing outside too long. Without another word, Jackson turned to Alice. Let's go. They walked away hand in hand, their heads held high, not with pride in money, but pride in who they had become. They didn't need to look back. And as they disappeared around the corner, Fiona stood alone, watching the man she once loved walk away with everything she thought he'd never be. Moral of the story: never judge someone by what they have today, because their future may surprise you. Real love stays during the hard times, not just when things are easy. In the end, those who believe in others will always rise together.